one of the rounds. And then in the fall, in October, you're going to see the third phase of our multi-layered service redevelopment plan. It's going to take place in routes that are happening in North County. So those are all ways that we're delivering value to our customers. We want to make sure we're communicating that effectively. For delivering value to our taxpayers, we're going to put together a Central Avenue BRT project advisory team, which will be business leaders along that corridor that can come and look at plans with us as we move through the project and make sure we're meeting everybody's needs along that corridor. We've also talked about expanding that business leader interaction a little bit with some other ideas about maybe making a committee that helps us look at some other things too. We're still kind of fleshing out the ideas with that. So it's not on the slide, but we're looking at it. We're also going to share benchmarking results. We are members of the American Bus Benchmarking Group, which is a consortium of transit systems throughout the country that share data and compare to benchmark against each other. So we can see how we're doing compared to other transit systems. So we'll be sharing that information with you too throughout the year. And then we're also looking at partnerships with alternative transportation providers, which means taxi services and Uber. Everybody's heard of those. And it's been in the news a lot. So we're working on developing some really fun partnerships with them that we're going to be sharing with you in the coming months as well. Delivering value to our community stakeholders, we're going to be putting together a job fair that we would host. We're talking about inviting other government agencies to come join us, and maybe the VA, so we can try to get a veterans component in there. We actually employ a lot of veterans here, a lot of people coming back that are discharged, come here and find work at PSTA. So we're hoping to create a job fair. We can invite those people as well as other government agencies here. There's a corporate UPass program that we're launching that Marilyn is going to be spearheading, where we take the opportunity that's given right now to St. Pete College and USF St. Petersburg students, where they can ride with their student ID card, and then the school pays us a flat annual rate for that unlimited access. And we're coming up with a standard pricing model so we can make that same kind of offer to corporate entities. That's going to be really exciting. We're going to coordinate with the Metropolitan Planning Organization and make sure all of our priorities are in line, make sure we're all driving on the same road in the same direction, and that's really, really important for our community. And then something called the Amenity Partnership Program. The name might change, but the idea is that we would partner with local municipalities to be able to put things at bus stops like benches and shelters, and we would share the cost of some of those items in some places. So all of these things together are the initiatives that we're wanting to do to demonstrate to the public how we are delivering value to our riders, to our taxpayers, and to our community and community stakeholders. We have a number of methods that we're going to be using throughout the year to talk about these different things. The first one is market research, and I'm really excited about the market research. We're going to do lots of surveying where we're listening to the public, to riders, to non-riders. It's really important that we talk to non-riders too, so that we can see what's our image like in the community. What do people think about PSTA? What are they saying about PSTA? And then once we know how everybody feels about us, it helps us form some of the actions that we take into the future of how we communicate based upon those things. So this market research is going to be really, really exciting, and you're going to be hearing some more about that in the coming months. The second thing, also related to that somewhat, is what we call a brand audit, where we have a firm come in and help, and communications play a big part. But it's not part of this particular plan. Number 3 is really fun too, is content development. So we want to use really strong storytelling to remind the public about all of your really great stories about why you use public transit and why it's so important in our community. So when you have a great story to tell, it helps other people see why public transit is important. We're going to amp that up. We've been doing some, but we want to do more of this, find more great stories to tell. So if you have a great story to tell, we want to hear it and we want to tell it for you. Number 4 is digital media, and this is what you would expect. We're doing YouTube videos, we're on social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of these things, and we are using those to reach out to riders and the community and businesses. And we want to continue to do that and increase that and amplify that as the year goes by. We're also looking at redesigning our website to make it a little bit easier to find the things that people want to find, and make it easier for people to find that custom content we talked about on the last slide. Easier to find those stories when you go to our website. That'll be happening during the next year too. The goal on my review was January 1st, 2017, so it'll happen in this year.
Yay.
We're also working on proactive media. We have a media liaison that came on board in April, and her primary job is to find really good stories that the media would be interested in covering, writing those stories really well in a way to present them to the reporter, to get the reporter interested in coming and learning more. So those are the kind of stories we want to tell. A really recent example that was a great one was Dave Beck, our driver who retired after 40 years driving. The reporter came and told his story, and that was largely in part because of very proactive media efforts. So we're trying to get the reporters in, telling good stories about us whenever we can. We're also going to look at developing some partnerships, like for example, the USF St. Pete campus has a communications department. We'd love to be able to work with some of those students, give them an opportunity to come in and see what we do, and it helps us sharpen our own skills as well. Oh, and the last thing was too, expanding our joint press releases with HART. Any opportunity where we have overlap, where we're doing similar projects at the same time, and we can get extra media for both of us, we'll try to do that as well. Number 6 is community event cross-promotion, and I love this one. This is another one that Maryland's working on heavily. We're looking for opportunities in the community for us to provide bus service that's already on the street, it's already a regular route, it just happens to be driving by or there's a big event going on. Perfect example of that is Clearwater Jazz Holiday. During Clearwater Jazz Holiday in October, we put extra buses on the Route 60 so we could serve people at a parking lot near St. Pete College Drew Street campus and get them downtown to the event. So this is a communications piece because it gives the opportunity for people who might not usually ride transit to have a really positive first public transit experience. So you're going to an event, you ride the bus, it's a great experience, there's free Wi-Fi, the bus is clean, the driver's nice, the people on the bus are nice, and then they're more likely to ride again. So it's really important for PSTA's overall place in the community. It's really, really important. Corporate UPass program, I mentioned a little bit. I think I almost touched on all of these. We are going to partner with the local chambers of commerce to reach out to large businesses. Any of your employers, if you have a large workforce that might be interested in this, Marilyn's the person who's going to be coordinating the program. Stakeholder engagement, we're going to be talking to employees more, trying to communicate with employees more. We're going to reintroduce our employee newsletter that we used to have to make sure employees know what's going on in the agency. And then developing graphics and materials for them and for their departments to use. And then also engaging more with the board and community leaders. We get a weekly update from Brad. Sometimes it's an email. Sometimes most recently it's YouTube videos. If you go out to our YouTube channel, you can see the latest one, and I was in it. It was pretty good. But you all will start getting those updates from Brad too, starting this year, so you can see what he's saying to the board about what we're all working on. We also put out clips. Ashley, our media liaison, keeps track of the media coverage we're getting, and we share that with the board. Number 9 is probably the one that most of you have seen the most and will continue to see the most, and that's just really having a really strong graphics department that's creating maps, brochures, flyers. All of these things are really important for us to get our message out. If you don't have a bus schedule, it's hard to find a bus. If you don't have a good map, it makes it more difficult to wayfind. So we have a really strong graphics department and want to make sure we continue good, strong communications, and that's why I put this on the slide, because we sometimes forget in the larger communications strategy that this is a really important piece of it. So that's my presentation. We'll talk more about PSTA moving forward as the months go on. I'd be happy to entertain questions. Chair, ma'am.
Does anyone have questions for Cindy?
A small one. When you were talking about the marketing research, and then you talked about the UPass involving larger businesses, what about smaller businesses? Are you doing any research with them? I guess what I'm coming at is that I've found that even access, getting from a bus stop into the business is hard because a lot of businesses don't seem to care whether we can get off the bus stop and get into their businesses. And I feel like maybe they don't have the same kind of positive image of the value of a transit rider to their business and of them making it easy for the transit rider to get from the bus into their business. Is there any thought about doing marketing research with those retail outlets and so forth?
That's a really great idea. We hadn't thought about it in the scope that we were looking at here for an overall branding and imaging perspective, but I think that's a really valid point, and I think it's definitely something that we'll look at from the marketing perspective. That's a great idea.
Anyone else? Cindy, oh, I'm sorry, Alejandra, please go ahead.
I was when I used to run in Hart, they like selected a few people to be like test out this app, and then they ended up developing the app where it told you like how many minutes to the bus stop, and it was really accurate. And I don't know, I'm not sure if there's one for PSTA or other.
That's One Bus Away is the name of that app, and we're actually working on getting our information integrated into that. So in the future, you'd be able to use that app to plan for both HART and PSTA. They're still in the testing and development stage, so at some point we'll be ready for testers probably to help us with that, but we're not there yet.
That's what I did, and it was perfect because if I needed to, like, since there's so many buses, you could hop off one bus, catch another one that'll get you there. Like you just knew it was just like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, the technology is amazing.
Oh yeah, it was very efficient.
Yeah, you'll see that in the future. I'm not sure the dates, but we're working on it.
David?
I would just like to echo that. I mean, you were talking about your graphics department producing schedules and maps. Those are great. A lot of people do rely on those, but especially for visitors and for people who are technologically savvy, to be able to have that digital control. I was in San Jose a couple of years ago and knew exactly where to walk and how many minutes, how many seconds I had before that bus was going to come from the train. Wow. And it was, like you were saying, it was seamless.
Yeah.
Having that digital ability is really powerful.
Yeah,
if you miss one
fabulous.
bus, you know, you're like, okay, this is, I can run here and get this one.
Yeah, when we introduced our real-time bus information system a couple of years ago, I mean, that just exploded. It's huge. People use it. I mean, text, call into voice, you know, the interactive voice response IVR system or online on the web. I mean, people are using the heck out of it. So being able to take that same data and integrate it into the app to give it more usefulness is something we, you know, obviously definitely want to do. So we're definitely on the way there.
Cindy, will there be opportunities at some of the town hall meetings or some of the other public communications events where you might want to have some of the track members there or participating in those events?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a great idea. But one of the things we really would like to do, I mean, even in advance of that, is maybe reach out to each of you individually and kind of, I don't say collect your story, but you know, if you have a story that you would be willing to let us share about why public transit is important to you. The stories are really invaluable. You know, being able to, you know, not have to worry about the car because it's so convenient, or deciding not to get one because you can't figure out why you need one, or deciding, you know, not to buy one in the first place when you come back from military service. I mean, those are all amazing stories that it helps people in the community put a human face on public transit when we can tell those stories. And having some of you all participate in those town hall meetings would be another great way to do that.
Maybe you and I can talk about some way to facilitate that so those events are known to everybody on the committee and you guys can sign up or offer to participate if something's in your area, or you have a special affinity for one of the events.
Yeah, we plan to do one in January, one in February for sure, and then kind of look and see how popular they are, and then kind of decide on a frequency based upon that first call. Could be great.
Vivian?
You know, there is, and I agree with reaching out to small businesses, but I remember when I was living in St. Pete a few years ago, and they were redeveloping the 4th Street area, and there is tremendous resistance by merchants to bus stops, to having, I mean, we still have the malls, resistance to the malls, to having a bus anywhere near there. They don't want people standing around waiting for a bus. They don't want the buses in front of their businesses. And I mean, this is reality. In other words,
But that may be the opportunity for communication where you say, this is what a bus rider is worth in terms of dollars, because our dollars are just as green as those of the people who drive
well,
up.
go tell that to Tyrone Mall.
Well, and Countryside as well.
It's the same concept, though, of Key West having the cruise boats come in. Suddenly you have 100 or 200 or 1,000 people dumped off in front of your business. It seems like it would be a great opportunity.
They're not looked as potential customers. They're looked at as nuisances.
But see, that's where
But that's the
communication.
point, Vivian, of the communication.
Yes, they want to rebuild, rebrand, change the ideas of the community. That's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. Super. Anyone else? Awesome. Cindy, thank you so much.
Thank you all for
Appreciate
letting
it.
me speak to you today.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you very much. If everybody would turn to page 27 in your packet. Actually, do we need to vote on Cindy's? That was listed as an action
Oh,
item.
yes.
We need to vote on endorsing the, okay.
Oh, I should have asked for an action one, I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right, I just realized that that was actually
If
an
it
action.
pleases the
item.
board, we would appreciate an action to recommend approval to the board of directors for our path forward strategic marketing, communications, and public relations plan as presented.
Thank you, Cindy. Do I have a motion? Robin? A second? Catherine? Seconds that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Great.
Thank you so
Cindy.
much.
Appreciate it. Okay, now, page 27. This is just going back to pick up something that inadvertently got deleted. We have made a couple of revisions to the bylaws over the past year, just as various things. This is a fairly new committee, a couple of years old, so as things came up, we adjusted bylaws slightly. And there was a Scrivener's error made on January of 2015 on Article 3 regarding membership. And the following sentence was deleted. Committee members may be removed for misfeasance, malfeasance, nonfeasance, or misconduct by a 2/3 vote of the track members, which would be this committee. We're just asking for reinstatement of that sentence that was originally in the bylaws and inadvertently deleted. So if I have a motion to reinstate that in the bylaws.
Make a motion to reinstate the
Lori,
bylaws.
thank you. Second, Catherine, you're our second lady today.
I like number 2.
Terrific. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Super, thank you. I believe Sangeeta was supposed to present a brief overview of kind of how we conduct our meeting and the meeting etiquette, but she was called away, so Cassandra, I'm sorry. And Cassandra's apparently called away. Where'd she go?
We're a team here at PSTA, so I'm your container for Sangeeta. So you've already started your meeting, so I think you're off to a really good start because I haven't seen anything that's too out of order that you've been doing. But Sangeeta Land is our chief compliance officer. I'm Cassandra Borchers, the chief development officer. And she would usually give an update annually to the committee about things that you need to be aware of and how we run things here. And so you have in front of you a little information about the bylaws, about government and also about government in the sunshine. And so I would encourage you to read through these things because they are very important. And I'm just going to hit a few highlights. Pardon?
Thank you. That's right.
8:33.
8:33. So you actually have 2 copies of the bylaws because you just made your adjustment. But every so often we look through the bylaws to see if there are things that we need to change. But the bylaws, which start on page 35, outline how we form the committee and then how we run the committee. So it includes your commitment to us in terms of attendance and what that means for your status on the committee. It also talks about the representation that we have on the committee, including alternates, and what your duties are as an alternate and what that means for the committee. So as an example, today David is here as the professional alternate. Carson Zimmer is our professional member. And when Carson is here, Carson votes. But because we want to make sure that we have a nice flow of the committee and we have enough people to help us make decisions, we have these positions called alternates. So since Carson is not here, David will vote for that position. We also have information about quorum and making sure that we can have a meeting and have votes. Officers, how we select officers. So as you've already noted, we have Elaine, who is the 2016 chair, and we are required to vote on her position as a chair and Gloria as the vice chair at the end of the previous year. So we did that in December, and that's why you see them leading the meeting today. Any amendments will have to go through the board, so the amendment we made today will also have to go to the board. So that's the bylaw. If you have any other questions, you can ask me today, or we can have Sangeeta will be here at the next meeting. Probably the most important reason we have this discussion at the beginning of the year is because of government in the sunshine. And so on page 40, you'll see an overview of things you need to know about government in the sunshine. So the two most important things that I think will happen in the next year for you is public records and understanding what that means for PSTA as a public agency, and then your duties as a committee member to make sure that the discussions that you have here are public. So let me start with public records. Anything that you send to a public agency like PSTA, so if you write me an email, is public record. So if somebody calls up and says, I want to see all of Cassandra's emails to or from any track member, we will have our custodian collect all of those records and hand them over to the person, no matter who they are and why they've asked for them. So anything that you send to any of us, I would make sure that it is polite and that you wouldn't mind if it showed up on the front page of the newspaper, because that's what it means to be a public record. If you write your notes and you don't show them to anybody, that is not a public record. But if Catherine shows Alejandra the notes that she wrote, that is a public record. So if you share it with somebody, it is a public record. Okay? It's on my desk, it's a public record. So just be clear about the information that you have and the way that we conduct ourselves is something that anybody can see at any time. So it's a lot about making sure that we're doing the right thing always and forever. The other part of government in the sunshine that I think we really need to know about is the items that we discuss here and the items that will come up for a vote. So a public meeting is considered anytime any two of you get together and talk about something that is going to come before this committee for a vote. We need to publicly notice that. You'll notice that these meetings that we have here are publicly noticed, the agenda is online, and we're allowing anybody to come and see them. In fact, I think we're live streaming it right now. So anybody can see what we're doing, and that's really important to have transparency in government. So if there is an item that might come up in discussion here, understanding that you are advising the board, the PSTA board, I would recommend that you make sure you discuss it in public hearing. So if you decide that Julie, you really like Chelsea and you want to go to a baseball game with her, knock yourself out. That is great. We really encourage that. Just don't talk about what's going to come up for a vote here. Do not talk about anything to do with this committee and you will be fine. So if you do want to talk to somebody, you say, I really want to have a small group discussion about a particular issue that is coming before the track. We will help you set that meeting up. We will make sure that it is publicly noticed. You can have it right here at PSTA in the sunshine. If you have any questions about this at all, please feel free to contact Sangeeta. Her email is sland@psta.net. You can call me or anybody else at PSTA, but she will have a more definitive answer for you, unless we can tell you that's good, that's not good. But it is very important. So you are free, as members of this committee, to talk about things that come before this committee with other committees, just not the people that you are voting. So you can talk to board members. You can talk to committees of the MPO. You can talk to those people, but you cannot talk about that with the people that you see here, the people that you meet. Does that make sense? I will have Sangeeta here next time so that you can meet her. And if you have any questions about any of these things, then you can ask. Thank you.
I believe we have Bob Lasher up next with the Williamsburg Public Outreach.
All right, good afternoon. You said afternoon or evening, Jim? Either one. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of this crew. On page 44, you've got an outline of the outreach we are doing for the Williams Park redesign. And this has been very interesting. We are going in uncharted territory for PSDA, and a lot of the stuff we're figuring out as we go along. And I'll tell you, there are a couple people I want to point out right away, because I do not want to forget to thank them. Number one is Chris Cochran in the back. I believe he's going to come up in a little bit. He, along with the other staff, have been pounding the pavement in St. Petersburg, the St. Petersburg staff, finding bus stops, layover areas, talking to people about putting in bus stops, taking out parking spaces, and it has been a very long effort to put that together so we can make this move. And then Christina Trinell in the back is the one who has been putting the maps together for us, which is going to be integral for our training and for our outreach. What we are doing, we've already been out, we've been working with them, things are still evolving, but starting next, actually the 25th, this is where I'm going to start to serpentine a bit, because this just changed about 30 minutes ago, and I know Mike might be throwing something at me. Starting the 25th, we're going to be doing in-house training. We're going to be bringing in drivers, CSRs. We hope to do it a little earlier, but because things were changing, the main piece that we're going to be using, the main handout, is still in production, so it's pushed us back a little. But we'll be training our CSRs, our drivers, and then we will be training our staff, our volunteers, so that we are all on the same page and get this information out. We've also sent, Marilyn sent out to you today via email, sign up if you'd like to be one of the volunteers for our ambassador program. Because what we are going to do is we're going to hit the streets on the 31st of this month, 31st of January. That is the day after the shelters are removed from Williams Park. And we thought that's going to be a good time to do it because people are going to be showing up, and it'll be a Sunday, which will help us ease into it a little bit. But they're going to be looking around. It doesn't matter how much warning you give people. I'm sure most of you know this. They're going to be going, what's going on? So we're going to be out there. Everyone who goes out, usually in teams of 2, will be out there mostly during peak periods of the day so we can hit the most amount of people. That will let us maximize the impact of our ambassadors and minimize the numbers we need, because if we were there from rollout to end of service every day, it would literally take us hundreds of people. And we're going to stagger them as we go over the next 3 weeks. We're going to stagger the times. We're going to have them at Grand Central Station as well, so we get them as they go into downtown. Grand Central will start February 8th. That'll start a week later. And then this will go through February 17th. That's 3 days following the service change. Unless things go really well, and on the 16th, everybody seems to know what they're doing, we may cancel the 17th. We'll see that as it comes. But what we're looking at, and this has really been quite an effort to put together a little handout, like a booklet like this on the first page, an introduction with some facts about why Williams Park is changing. And then for each individual route, there will be 2 maps inside. One basically focused for the drivers. It's the stick map that you see on our schedules right now. This is what they request so they know where they're going, where the bus is going. And then the other one with a color highlighted of whatever route you want. This is the route 4. And then around it in gray, you will see all of the stops, all of the other routes. So as people go downtown and they say, okay, I have to get off at First Avenue North, where do I catch the 52? And then you can see around, okay, there's the 52, there's the stop. So you know where the transfer points are. And this is going to be the main job of our ambassadors. That is what we suspected would be. Because finding people who are no longer going into Williams Park, we want them to know where they're going to be transferred. So this is going to be one of the main pieces. And of course, along with this, you'll have a little FAQ that we're putting together for the drivers and the public. They ask questions. We will have our security team down there to answer questions, safety, security training, because they know everything about everything. There will be city staff out there as well. And then some of us from planning will always be there. I plan to spend a lot of time there. My colleague Juan, others will be down there as well. So if you don't know an answer and you can't find it in here, and you'll have schedules too, all 16 schedules, those routes will be changing. So you get a little packet of that to the people doing outreach. Grab one of us, call us. We're also giving out whistles. If we're halfway around the park, give a whistle. Something happens, and also the whistles, for emergency. If somebody hurts themselves, fall down, blow it, because we can call it. We'll have police presence down there as well. But it's going to be quite an undertaking, and I don't know if I should jinx it and say things are going along very, very well, mostly because of the great work of my colleagues. But we're excited to move forward with this and get the training. We've had focus groups. I wish we could have had you do one as well, but because of the short time frame, we had to pull in customer service reps, drivers, and some in-house panel, do a few focus groups to help us figure the best way to present this to both the public and the drivers. We needed a one-stop shop for this to get it out. We only had a very short time to put it into production and get it out. It's supposed to be here Friday the 22nd. And so we're hoping we can do that, and then we can move into training the next week. And I don't think it's going to be too hard. Also, there'll be people will be adorned in bright yellow vests to make it easy to find us. And I think that's pretty much it. After the 14th, we're still working on deployment areas, because of course after the 14th we can't be at Williams Park. We can, but nobody else is going to be there. We're just going to be by ourselves. So we're looking at locations around the city, because there will be several locations around the city. One of them, just southwest of Williams Park, that intersection, where you'll be able to see all around where people are coming and going. But we'll be more dispersed after that, because we want to help people. We don't want anybody getting off the bus and going, "Oh my God, what happened?" We want to be able to get to them. And then, of course, our info line, our customer service reps, they're all going to be up to speed. They can help too.
Questions?
Yeah.
Okay, will the new schedules have the time points on them? I mean, it's fine to say, that's where I can catch 4, but it's not going to tell me what time 4 is going to get there.
That
You
one I
understand what
don't
I'm
know.
saying?
Yes, I do. I don't know if there's anybody here who can answer that. We'll have the exact point. There'll be the time point downtown. Yes.
We'll have time points.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the biggest problem on connectivity.
Yes.
Is if you've got a time point, at least you've got a possibility that that's when the bus is going to be there.
Oh, yeah, we will have layover locations
The
throughout the
rest
city.
of the biggest problem is, yeah, the bus comes by, and don't tell me about getting on the phone, but, when's the bus going to get there? Well, the bus is going to get there when the bus gets there.
Yep.
I'm not being sarcastic about it, but, I was on 59 today coming over here, and they were back to back because one was running really, really late. So, and this happens.
You're right.
It's a serious problem, frankly, with PSDA when 20% of the buses are not on time.
We'll have a downtown.
And I hate to,
point.
I'm not trying to be negative about it, but that is a reality. And the reality is making connections, because if you don't have time points, that's the only time you've got a fairly good idea that you're going to be able to make a connection.
Good
And
point,
I will
Betty.
caution you, this is one of the biggest service changes, if not the biggest in the agency history.
Elizabeth?
We expect some hiccups.
Elizabeth, I believe, has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The driver on 79 was talking about it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to this meeting, I'll find out. And I understand the city of St. Pete wants their park back. Cool, that's a good idea. But I can't conceptualize, everything's right there, you've got a bus depot atmosphere, you know you can catch a bus, you just go to there, and then you can figure it out when you get, what's it gonna look like? I don't get it.
The grid system, you mean?
Yeah. How?
Actually,
where's-
and you'll
It's
see
actually
it in the handouts we have, but it looks like
Yeah.
a grid. And the neat thing about it is when you look at the city, which just from when I started PSDA about 10 years ago, is so different today than it was then. With the entertainment, the restaurants, the stores, the districts that have just blown up from this one little area they used to have, but a lot of that didn't have bus service. A lot of those corridors had no service. Now, when we start to move these out, just migrate them out from the park. Remember, these are small blocks too. So it's not going to be that hard if you have to go a block here or there.
Okay.
A few people might, others are going to have a much easier time getting to
So
their
your bus
destination.
depot has expanded
Yes.
over, to fit more effectively into the new space that they have with all the new businesses.
Yes.
So it's just, your depot has expanded.
You'll serve more areas.
Elizabeth, just to conceptualize, Chicago has a very similar small block radius. You can actually look that up online and you just see how they did it and kind of mention that smaller. But just go on Google, it's really neat, and it really is a lot more efficient, just with their buses.
Yeah,
As
some of
a
the routes
grid
are
system,
nice
are
and
you
streamlined.
able to add longer hours and longer times?
most of the major metropolitan cities, am I correct, function on a grid system rather than the hub and
Yeah.
spoke
Yes.
system that we do. So your LA's, your New York, your Chicago's, your San Francisco's, that's actually the system that those function on. And it just makes it more
you're not pulling
consistent.
out routes to separate the routes, they're still gonna be close enough. Thank you. I'll go back to the drive and I'll tell them it's cool.
Okay. I think Chelsea had a question.
Needless to say, if I go online and put where I want to go, it's already updated, right?
It will be, yes. Some of the maps up there now, when you look at the Williams Park, were some of the earlier maps that we're working on, they are getting updated. So you can go online and you can see all of the maps and everything we'll have in hand out. Those will be the latest and updated, same with schedules.
And if I wanted to volunteer to help with this,
Actually, we're sending, we should have gotten an email today. We're doing an online sign-up.
Okay.
If you can get on and see the schedule and sign up.
Thank you.
You can also see the training sessions that we'll be having, so you can come in and work with us in the training. We'll take you through some of the things you need to know, do some exercises, make sure everybody's comfortable with it.
thank you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
had a question too. With the change to the grid system, how will that affect people in terms of when you have to transfer to a different bus? Is that a whole another fare, or how does that? Is it? I mean, and I ask because as one who travels in a wheelchair too, it's like then I have to be transferring and clicking onto different buses each time. It's just that's the way it works.
Well, yeah, I don't think that the fare policy is not going to change for transfers from what it is now. If you have an all-day pass, unlimited
Which I
transfers. If it's somebody just making one-way trip and then they go to another one, then they will buy another fare. Yes.
Yeah, we're also not splitting any routes. So
Okay.
if you do that now, you'll do that February 15th. If you don't do that now, you won't do that February 15th.
They may change it. Like if you look at the 4, which is one of my favorite routes, it's much more streamlined going north and south through downtown. Some of the others do that too. So a lot of you will experience more streamlined travel. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, based on Elizabeth's question, when do the drivers find out about this? So, because they're your front line.
Yes.
They're the ones that the riders are looking at and talking to, and the driver says, "Oh, I don't know."
No,
That's not a very good face.
They will have training starting on the 25th. As soon as we get these in, we're going to intense training with all of that. We will train actually their supervisors and trainers and bring them in and show them. So they're going to get all of the information. They'll know where things are going.
They know it's coming.
But they don't know the
But they're nervous.
details, apparently.
They don't know. You're right. I don't either right now. I don't have it, but we will. That's what this has been. Christina does, and Chris probably does. But we will start. We were already putting together a very intense schedule for them, and we'll also have resources so they will be able to quickly look something up.
Because if you're talking about moving forward, it's definitely the drivers who are literally
Yes.
in the front of the bus, and they're the face of the organization to your customers. So.
And they might not like hearing this, but I love the fact that they are spreading the word. I know they're a little nervous, but we're a lot of people out there who know something's coming. It's getting them curious, and that makes the whole messaging much easier because people are thirsty for it. We're thirsty for it too. But yeah, we'll definitely have very intense training for the drivers and customer service representatives. That's above and beyond what the ambassadors get, because their duty with the public and the riders is above and beyond what we'll get as ambassadors out there talking to them.
Bob, one thing I'm seeing frequently, tourists get on the bus. The drivers are not advising them what is the most appropriate fare to do. In other words, are you going to be coming back? Are you going to switch to another bus? Then you need an all-day pass, because you don't know how many people I hear, what, I got to pay again? I just paid, on the bus I get off. So, and I realize this is a driver training thing, and I don't know how you do it. The drivers need to be aware for the unfamiliar passenger to tell them what's the best deal. If you buy an all-day pass, then you don't have to pay for 6 different buses. Because I hear a lot, especially from what are obviously new riders, tourists, et cetera, that how much is the thing? And they shove their money in, and then the next time they get on the bus, what, I got to pay again? I just got off the bus. So you know, as I said, I know this is a driver thing, and shall we say, you know, lack of knowledge is no excuse, but ignorance of the law is no excuse, but it's the same, it is a situation that does exist out there.
All right, I will ask Jeff
The
Thompson.
one-time driver or the tourist who isn't familiar with, I see a lot on the beaches where, you know, they get on, they go down and then they, what, I gotta pay again? You know what I'm saying? Because they don't understand, well, you could have bought a day pass.
All right, well, I'll ask our Director of Transportation to put together. some
Yeah, I mean,
information.
I think this is something,
Get out some drivers.
you know, during the tourist season, you see it more and more, and Beach Week also,
Right.
that's,
No, I get it. I'll ask him to do the rest of the drivers. Thank you.
Thank you,
all right.
Sure.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you very much, and I hope I'll see you down at Williams Park with us. Thanks.
And Chris?
He is coming up with.
Oh, there he is. Okay, now we have Chris Cochran.
Maryland is handing out a copy of PowerPoint for you. Sorry, wasn't in your packet to start with. Had a couple small changes in there. I'll go ahead and get started. What I'm going to talk to you about here is our shelter program. For those of you who were part of the committee previously, you're already familiar with the shelter program. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a review and background for those of you who are new, so you have more of an understanding of what this is about. To start with, get a little bit of understanding here. PSDA had been a number of years before we had secured a vendor contract for putting shelters out in our system and having actually a whole new design for shelters. So we really came to the point where we were able to finally secure a contract with a vendor, and we started looking at how are we going to deploy our shelters throughout the system that is going to be most effective for us moving forward in all of the changes that we have going on. So a little background, we have over 700 shelters in our system right now, and really the first thing we started looking at was really understanding this important role that shelters have in our system. Obviously, you as riders understand to provide shelter from the weather, a safer place for you to wait, and really overall creates a better customer experience in your daily riding of the system. We also really took a look at what is the condition of our shelters in our system. And prior to this contract, it had actually been 3 years since we had put a new shelter in, but it had actually been a little bit longer since we had regularly been putting new shelters on the street. We're actually at the point where we're actually having to disassemble shelters to maintain some of the better ones that were existing in the system. When we really hit a threshold where it became critical for us to move forward with this contract. We came up with this distribution strategy and looking at these things in our path forward concept, and that number one, we're focused on maximizing this customer experience and what are the customer needs, and that being safety, shelter from the elements, and an overall better experience. But also, as we've really coming out of the green light experience, we had really developed some very good relationships with all of the cities, with the county, with other agencies in the area. We really wanted to sort of ride that wave of momentum in maintaining those relationships and working with them and understanding and supporting their community development needs, their revitalization programs, and really upcoming projects so that we could coordinate with them better, integrate our shelter plan into their plans, and it really made it very much more cost efficient, but more easy for us to get what we wanted and what they wanted at the same time, creating a better experience for our riders. Number one, looking at our customer-focused needs, we really looked at high ridership locations where most of our big transfer centers, some of the malls, some of the locations out on the beach, and we identified a number of very critical locations where the most amount of buses were coming in and the most amount of people were using, that we could get these shelters out there to have the greatest impact. We also started looking at some rare places where we may not have single point locations where there's a huge amount of ridership, but maybe little clustered areas, maybe corridors, big intersections, Almerton 19 area, those sorts of ideas. And again, we always have to look at geographic equity, which for those of you who are new, you'll hear about Title VI, which is ensuring that as we put amenities out and we put service out, we're distributing all of that equitably amongst different demographics throughout the county. So those are really the three big methodology areas that we focused on in evaluating where we were going to put shelters in the first phase. But certainly we also looked at as much as we could in leveraging these community partnerships that we have developed over time. And I think more of this community revitalization is going to become more important as we fill in the replacements and the most immediate needs for shelters throughout the county. So that's a little bit of a background of how this came to be. We've already begun, just to give you an update on this phase one, for those of you who are new, we secured a contract in the summer. We had the shelters made last week. We got our final shipment, so we have 33, I believe, shelters sitting down at facilities that are waiting to be assembled and installed. And that will begin in February. We just have so much going on with Williams Park right now. That vendor is going to assist us in the demolition of moving some of the shelters and stuff out of Williams Park. So they're really focused on that. But as soon as Williams Park is, those shelters are out, they're going to hit the ground running and getting our new shelters out on the street. Our top priority locations, this is kind of what I was talking about, and many of you as riders will recognize some of these as big locations. Bay Pines Veterans, Tyrone Square Mall, Gateway Mall, Shops at Park Place, these are all our big transfer centers, and those will be what we're focused on deploying for our first phase. There's some other little areas in there. A good example of a corridor improvement is this 4th Street corridor down around 15th Street South and 15th Avenue South and 4th Street South area. And they're doing some nice redevelopment in that area, and we're looking at putting in something new to help support that as that progresses. So our recommendations moving forward, if you all haven't seen when you came in the front door, that's our new shelters. And definitely when you walk out the front door, when you leave, if you haven't seen it, look to your left. So that's an assembled one. That one doesn't have a bench in it yet, but that is what they're going to look like. They're really, really nice. We're really excited to get them out on the street. So take a look, and you'll see what's going out there. Again, this phase 2 area really continues to kind of complete the deployment in these areas where they're needed the most. There's still a fair amount of high ridership areas that did not have shelters in the system. And one of the problems we realized as we started to analyze this is a lot of people wondered, you have these high ridership areas, why don't you have a shelter there now? And a lot of it went back to seeing what kind of right-of-way we had available. We've been able to go back and reevaluate all those areas. And after this deployment here, there will be no locations where right-of-way exists where 40 or more riders a day are boarding that there is not a shelter at. Okay? Whether it's new or old, but at least new. So after this, there'll be a little over 60 additional shelters to what's out there now, and it's really addressing those high-need, high-impact areas. We also had some room to be able to replace some dilapidated shelters in some of these high ridership areas. And all of these, again, we found a couple locations, Dunedin, South St. Pete, where we're going to work closely with those cities to be able to put some shelters in some corridor areas that there's some active redevelopment going on. And this will give you this is the 13 kind of locations we've identified. There's individual locations within these. One location may be a corridor, but there are 34 shelters that we have ordered that are going to be deployed in these locations, and we're really looking forward to getting those out there. These are going to address the remaining of the really big needs that we have in addressing some of the gaps in this particular amenity that we have out there. Some of them, again, the Gateway Mall, we're replacing all of those at the immediate area. We have some really big ridership in sort of the Gateway Loop around there between 77th and 84th or 82nd, I believe. We're going to replace those. This Dunedin corridor is kind of what I was talking about. We're looking at community revitalization and being able to do some stop consolidation where we can consolidate sort of okay ridership stops into one location. If we put them together and improve that site, we're expecting that people will congregate to that stop. And that'll be a strategy moving forward and how we're going to continue to put shelters out. So if you have any questions on some of these locations, how these were, how we came up with them, certainly be able to answer that for you. Our future plans here, we're implementing the shelter match program, which will be basically working with communities and splitting costs to put shelters out so PSDA doesn't have to incur the entire cost of placing a shelter, in particular at locations where we might not otherwise put a shelter because there's not as many people as, if there's not 40 people there, we wouldn't normally spend the money. There's a little bit less and the city wants to contribute to it. Well, we work out a program where we can share some of those costs. Shelter repurposing, we'll begin looking at where there are still plenty of shelters out there that are in very good shape, and if we can replace a new shelter there, we can take that one and put it somewhere else and replace something that really needs to go. So we're sort of bumping down all the bad shelters out of the system and trying to redistribute everything that we can and maximizing that amenity. The stop consolidation, as I mentioned, like Dunedin, going to do our best as we move forward in the next phase of redesign and consolidating stops where it makes sense, where it's a benefit, and that will allow us the opportunity to improve amenities at those locations. And again, continuing to grow these community partnerships will be critical, and really strengthening our existing larger agency coordination with the county, with the state, who are really responsible for doing bigger road projects in which they're very good about working with us, with giving us everything we need to where we can just walk in and put a shelter. We don't have to pay for concrete, we don't have to do the surveying. So if we're talking FDOT roads, county roads, that's a really good coordination that we will continue to take advantage of. So this is sort of an example of this shelter match program that will be going out. We've been working with the beach cities, in which we're identifying some locations in their city where they may want to consider putting some shelters. I think as this moves along here into the spring, we'll have probably another presentation on it at a later point when we start implementing that some more. So the future holds a lot, and there's a lot of exciting things going on.
Thank you.
Are the new shelters going to have lights?
Yes.
Solar lights?
There will be solar lights at any location where amenity does not have adequate light.
Okay. The other thing is, have they made any progress with Clearwater Beach and Sand Trees to get shelters out there?
Yes, that is a discussion that is ongoing. We found some locations that are perfect for shelters. What's going on, we have to coordinate with them. They have very strict beach design codes that we're going to work with them to figure out what we have to do to be able to get those.
So hopefully they are working on allowing shelters basically on
Yes,
Clearwater.
they will allow them. They
and
have design
Sandkey.
standards, yes, that we will work with them on.
I mean, the old shelters, some of them are great for growing forests, like the ones in front of Largo High.
Up on the roof, yes.
Yeah, nice little forest.
Yes.
They have little tiny no smoking stickers inside the shelters now. They have to have, I would like to see more of them or bigger, because it's hard to explain, and they're usually pretty nice about it. It's raining out, do you mind,
Certainly. I'm aware of some of the things that are going in there, but we'll definitely look at that. We'll see what kind of stickers we're putting in there. That sounds like a reasonable thing to consider. So,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Any other questions?
Buses are going to be going into Largo Commons?
Anyone want to comment on that?
Who knows?
Not starting February yet. Still being,
I know that's an ongoing problem.
it's kind of an ongoing problem that's out of our hands, kind of at this point. I think we're
Yeah,
doing,
I didn't know
we're
where-
doing more
I didn't
than
know
what
where
we
it
can
was,
to
the-
push that forward, so.
The ongoing problem of Largo Commons.
Anything else? Thank you, Chris.
Right, thank you all.
And then, Brad, do you have anything else you wanted to say to us?
Well, you can see on the rest of your agenda, there is,
Okay.
looking ahead at what's coming up down the pike. We have more plans to change the services, when we meet again, it'll be after, Williams Park change has gone into effect. And, you can see some of the other presentations, but otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Consider?
Please make sure to see Marilyn for your pass for next month. So that will be your monthly pass for February.
Then the meeting's adjourned. We will see you February 16th. Thank you. Good, how are you? It was very nice. So future item, well, yeah, no, because, in fact, I don't like that. I just show Yeah, but I don't know. I just showed them.
Interesting. Okay, so I don't get like an actual buzzer. Can I switch right now?
Oh, yes.
Emailed it, she emailed me. I never got it, and I moved last week, and